I'm 95% of the way to making a farm for every item in the game of Minecraft, including this farm, which is the only AFK fish farm which can give you treasure loot flawlessly. But Mojang removed my video on it and my world downloads from YouTube. So I decided to make this new AFK automatic fish farm, which uses the new calibrated sculk sensor so you can continue to get all that lovely treasure loot. Hello there, Ray here, and let me explain how this works while building it up. You can build this farm pretty much anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and build it here in the ground because that's just the easiest to do. What we're going to do is dig out from the center out total of 2 blocks in each of the cardinal directions. Then we're going to dig out this entire 5x5 area, a total of 4 blocks down. Typically, any area where you dig where there's dirt like this, there's typically about 4 layers of dirt, so it should be easy to go through just by having a shovel. So now it should look like this. Next up, we're going to place in the redstone. In the very center here is where we're going to have our calibrated sculk sensor. But this thing can listen to vibrations up to 16 blocks away, so if you're afraid that there's a cave underneath and it might listen to something underneath, you might as well go ahead and place a wool underneath so it doesn't end up hearing a zombie walking around. Now we're going to program this calibrated sculk sensor to only listen to a very specific vibration. This is done by having the comparator point into the side that has a little amethyst coloring coming out of it, and then we're going to have a furnace behind that. So by putting in 16 blocks here in the furnace, we're going to put a redstone signal of 2 into this, which means the sculk sensor only listens to things that drop on the ground. So once this thing hears our bobber making a noise, we want it to go into a sticky piston here, which is going to move this observer, which is going to send power to over here. This is going to put power into this solid block right here. And then from there, the redstone signal is going to go 2 directions. It's going to go this way through a repeater on 2 redstone ticks, and a repeater going out this way that's on the 4 delay. This is going to go into a solid block, and then we're going to remove some more of these blocks over here, where it's going to go into a redstone dust over there, and then into 2 repeaters on full delay, 1 there and 1 here. These 2 repeaters are then going to go over and power this piston right here, which is going to put a signal through this block. That block is then going to be red, which is going to create a shorter delay where it's going to push its redstone signals into a solid block. And then it's going to go into this redstone as well as this redstone dust, which will connect these 2 systems together. So when the sculk sensor hears something landing, it's going to power this, and then after a short delay, it's going to power this again. Both these signals are going to go into this target block, which will put its signal into this torch. The torch will put its power into this solid block here, which is going to be used to make this trapdoor flicker. And that's all the redstone that's needed. So now it looks like this. And next up, we don't want the sculk sensor to hear anybody hopping about. So we're going to go ahead and encase it in wool on these 2 sides like this, as well as on this side. And we're going to cover up this as well as this. And we're going to bring up these 3 sides. So it's just like so. And then we're going to top it off by putting our soul sand. Now, next up, we have to put in a floor so the water won't flow down into our redstone down below. The reason why we have a 5x5 area is because we need 5x5 worth of water in order to get treasure loot from fishing. So to put in the water, we just need to put one every other one, just like so. And then do every other one on this side, and that's going to fill in this whole thing with water. We need to do 2 layers of water in order to get treasure loot as well. And all has to be water sources. Notice that the soul sand produced the bubble columns here, but that's still technically water source, so it works. Now the player will be AFKing around this area here, and the trapdoor flickering will let the player reel out and reel in their fishing rod. But the player needs to click onto something, and rather than using signs, because 1.20 signs need to have wax on them, it's actually cheaper just to come in and place in a double chest right here. And to stop the player from clicking inside of it, if we just place a solid block right here, they'll no longer be able to right click and open up the chest, which is exactly what we want. But from up here, we can't actually click on the chest because they're too far away. So what we're going to do is place in a block that's a little bit lower. The bed is a perfect height so the player can continue to right click on the chest here. While at the same time, when we reel the fishing rod back out again, the bobber doesn't actually fall down this little hole. But as the player fishes up items, they'll eventually fill up their whole inventory with items. So we need a collection system. So what we're going to do is we're going to knock out this block right here. This will cause the water source that's just beneath of it to be flowing. As you can see, if I stand here, it pulls me inward. So it's going to pull all the items over there. And once the items end up over here, we can easily pick them up with this hopper here while not interfering with our 5x5 2 deep water. Now we can come on the backside over here and remove these blocks like this. And place in our storage. You can put as much storage as you want. That way whenever you catch a fish, you can easily access it. So at the moment the fish farm kind of works. The problem is the bobber will sometimes activate the sculk sensor just by hitting the surface. We can actually make this more consistent by placing in some boats. So we're going to come over here to this side, and in the center here we're going to knock out this block and place in a chain like so. And then we're going to knock out this block and place in a pressure plate. Now we're going to place a boat on top of this block. Make sure the boat is not going to fall into the water once we remove this block as well as this block. It has to be completely on top of the chain. From here we can go ahead and hop into it, and we can drive it against this grass block over here a little bit, and then drive it out into the water a little bit. We want to slowly move the boat. We can do this by not actually pushing forward, but pushing side to side. You see the boat actually creeps forward by doing this. And we just want the boat to be somewhat close to the edge of the chain there, which is also the edge of this block. So you can see it sort of clips it. Doesn't have to be perfect. That's pretty good right there. We'll place another block here, and we'll place another boat on top of that. And once again, we'll drop this boat on top of that boat. Now we'll ride this boat. Once again, we will move this boat out to the edge of the previous boat. What we're trying to do is get our boats to hang over top of the bubble column in the center without actually putting any blocks in this area, because the game checks 2 blocks above the AFK fish farm to make sure there's no blocks. Otherwise you won't get treasure loot. So it's important not to put anything else out here. And once you get to the edge here, like so, just go ahead and crouch out of it, and then make sure not to bump the boats from there on. Now if you're afraid some animal is going to come by and push the boats, or if some skeleton's going to come by and shoot at you while you're AFK, you can come around and place in fences all the way around your entire farm. Because wandering traders can also like spawn, or phantoms could spawn, and they could come in and bump the boats here. Look at that pig, try to get in here. And then make the fence 1 higher if you are afraid of skeletons attacking you while AFK fishing. I'm going to go ahead and place in a nice little gate. This is how you can get into the farm. But while AFKing, you could get phantoms to spawn up in the air if your player has access to the sky. We can fix this just by coming in and placing some slabs in just like so. So now you won't have sky access reaching your player and won't get phantoms to spawn. And if you don't want to get struck by lightning while AFKing, you can just place a lightning rod a little ways away. So to run this farm, what you want to do is stand on this bed here, go ahead and crouch, and then walk out to the edge of this bed. And then you're going to line your little pointer just on the edge of this trapdoor here. And when you want to start the farm, you crouch and just click 1 time. What this does is it lets the bobber go over there, get picked up by the bubble columns, and get placed underneath of the boats there. And this will hold it in a perfect location where it's barely touching the water, but it's also not bobbing on top of it. Same time, there's actually fish that pulls on it. It makes the water splash, and that's what the sculk sensor is listening to. It's listening to stuff land either on water or ground. This is what it looks like where your player will be standing on the very edge of this bed here. That way you're close enough to the center of the farm that when you send the bobber out, it gets underneath of the bubble columns. And we're standing a little bit to the left-hand side because our boat is a little bit to the left-hand side. So when you're fishing here, you obviously want to have the best fishing rod, being Lure 3, Luck of the Sea 3, unbreaking so it lasts longer, and mending so every time you catch something, the XPs will automatically repair it. So you can fish forever. So now it's time to actually do your true AFKing. All you have to do is hold down the right click button, and you can see what happens is the trapdoor flickers twice. So as soon as something bites on your bobber, it activates the calibrated sculk sensor, which will activate the trapdoor 1 time, and then it'll go through a little bit of delay and activate it a 2nd time. First time activates lets you pull in the bobber with the fish on it, and then the 2nd time activates it lets you throw it back out again. Now if you don't want the loot to end up in your inventory, just go ahead and fill it up with something else ahead of time. So when you do pull in an item, what happens is it stays in the water. Then it ends up getting in that little bit of flowing water here, gets pulled over to this hopper, gets picked up, and placed into the chest. I purposely put in a little bit of delay between the trapdoor opening once and the 2nd time. That way the player wouldn't throw the fishing rod outwards and the bobber would end up catching the item that's coming towards them rather than sending the bobber back out again. So if you want to AFK now without actually holding down your mouse button, this can also be done in Java Edition just by first holding down the right click mouse button, then pressing F3 plus T, and then when this screen pops up, release your right click mouse button. And now you can see, even though I'm not holding any buttons down, the player is continuing to right click. At this point you can also do Alt plus Tab if you have the game pausing turned off, which will allow you to use your mouse on other programs on your computer while you're AFK fishing at the exact same time. And at any point if you want to stop AFK fishing, all you do is right click on your Minecraft client and you regained access. So this setup works for single player as well as in multiplayer. Unless you're in a multiplayer server where you have a really bad connection to the server, in which case you still would want to build this farm and go ahead and just run it. But if you happen to come back and find your player clicking on this chest here without the bobber out underneath of the boat, and then you refix it and this happens a few times, then there's a couple things you could do to fix this. Now the easiest thing you can do is come down here and change the delay to this repeater here. Set this one to 3 ticks, as well as set this one to 3 ticks, or you can even try 4 ticks. The longer delay just means that the trapdoor will stay open for a longer time, meaning that even though you don't have a connection to the server, you're still able to click on it when your connection comes back again. We'll play around with those 2 repeaters there, but if you're still having trouble running this farm on a multiplayer server, then this next step is for you, where we're going to place in a clock. So in the back corner of the farm, we're going to come over here and place this block instead with a trapdoor that's on the bottom. Come in here, open this up and close it, and this will put us in crawling mode. So now we're down inside where there's redstone. If we remove this block, you can see the redstone that I put in earlier. So you want to find this block as well as this redstone does. We're going to come over here and knock out 2 blocks over here, and on the back side of this, we're going to knock out this block, and we want this block to be a solid block with a torch on the back side. We want that torch going into this redstone here, and then we want it to go down and into this redstone here. Then we're going to go on the opposite side of this torch here. We're going to knock out these blocks, and we're going to place in a redstone dust here as well as here. Now we're going to come over here and have a comparator point into that block there. We're going to stand on top of this comparator and point one going the opposite direction. Both these comparators together with these 2 redstone dust here are going to produce a fade clock that slowly fades, and when it's completely gone, it resets itself with the torch in the back. So currently we made ourselves a clock, but we want this clock to last longer, so we're going to go ahead and remove these blocks here, and then we're going to come back and place in comparators going away from it. Total of 4 of them. Then we're going to remove 4 more blocks going that direction as well as over here, and we're going to place in 4 more comparators going this direction. Then these 2 blocks removed, and they're going to connect up to this redstone dust. Then we're going to take these comparators back again, going the opposite direction. Total of 8 more on this side, so they connect up with this redstone. So now we got a small comparator clock right here, and then we got a really big slow one over there. And what this comparator clock system does is, if you happen to go out of sync with the fish farm over here, so let's say you did catch a fish, but your player lagged right when the trapdoor flickered, so you missed clicking on it, and you end up stuck in this position here. The machine will automatically notice that you haven't been catching fish for a while, and it will reset the system by flickering the trapdoor just 1 time. And by having this comparator clock being really slow, it shouldn't interfere with your normal fishing. But if you do notice the big clock interfering with your normal fishing, you can always add in more comparators. Now that you have your farm working, what can you expect for drops? After AFK fishing for 4 hours, I got these 3 double chests worth of amazing loot. So on average, each hour you should expect a little over 2 stacks of cod, a stack of salmon, half a stack of pufferfish, 10 tropical fish. And since we are using the luck of the sea, we purposely aren't getting very many of the junk loot. So you get like 1 rotten flesh, 1 leather, 1 string, 1 stick, 1 bone, 1 tripwire hook, 2 bowls, 2 ink sacks, 3 lily pads, 1 leather boot, 1 water bottle, 1 non-enchanted fishing rod. And if you're fishing in a jungle biome, you can also get bamboo. And with the luck of the sea, we also get more of the treasure loot. So around 6 saddles per hour, 7 enchanted fishing rods, which can have a wide range of different enchantments. You can even find a perfect one that has mending, unbreaking, luck of the sea, as well as lure 3. You also get around 6 enchanted bows, which have a wide variety of enchantments. You get some really nice ones with like infinity and high level of power. You can even find mending and unbreaking ones. Treasure loot also includes the name tags. You get around 7 of those, as well as 6 nautilus shells. But the main thing people AFK fish for is the enchanted books, which you can get every single enchantment in the game except for soul speed and swift sneak. But it does mean you can get books that you normally can't get from enchanting tables, including frostwalker as well as mending. Mending being the main one people try to go for when using this farm. With this farm, on average, you catch something every 9 seconds, and it produces over 1,500 XPs per hour. Now see how I designed a farm for every other item in the game of Minecraft with this playlist here? Or support my crazy goals by checking out my Patreon link. I've created almost 1,000 videos about crazy things in Minecraft, so make sure you guys are subscribed and leave a like on the video, and don't forget to share my farms with your favorite Minecrafters. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next one. Bye bye!